Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game with over 100 cards, and 99% of those cards are bad. However, these bad cards still make it into players' Edison format decks every single day. Join me as I dive deep into the abyss of bad card design and put these unloved pieces of cardboard to the ultimate test. 3 duels against random strangers on the internet. At the end of each episode, we'll reveal each card's place on the cursed tech tier list, ranking them from almost competitive to downright unplayable trash. Will we stumble upon a broken combo, invent a new deck, or will we just go insane trying to win a duel using Frog the Jam? You will just have to wait and find out. This is Cursed Tech. Hello and welcome to the 3rd installment of Cursed
Tech Tuesday.
In this episode, we are taking the name of the series extremely literally because this card is cursed. Introducing Hell Poemer. Hell Poemer was released in Pharaonic Guardian on July 18th, 2003. It was actually featured as the cover card of the set. And the card itself is a victim of good old-fashioned American censorship, with its original Japanese name being 2 words, Hell Poemer, as in a poet that writes about hell. Or maybe it's a poet in hell, I'm not too sure. And this is easily one of my favorite examples of Yu-Gi-Oh! Censorship. Besides the Mourning of Grass, of course, because that one's just a classic. But in this one, it's like this ancient looking word. You know, no one knows how to pronounce it. But in reality, they just dropped an L and smashed 2 words together and called it a day. It's kind of like an old English kenning. You know, like in Beowulf? You guys know, that's not a weird reference to make. That's, you guys get that reference. So what is Hell Poemer about? You know, what's this card's deal?
When you sent my Hell Poemer to the card graveyard, you activated my monster's special ability. It's in your graveyard now. Say farewell to a random card from your hand.
Hey! Not that card!
Joey kills Hell Poemer by battle, and it proceeds to torment him, ripping 4 cards out of his hand throughout the duel.
Hell Poemer destroys another card from your hand. Remember Hell Poemer?
That was the best card in my hand!
And unlike a lot of anime cards, its effects stay exactly the same when brought over to the TCG. It reads, when this card has been sent to the graveyard as a result of battle, this card's effect is activated. As long as this card exists in the graveyard, your opponent discards 1 card randomly from his/her hand at the end of his/her battle phase. Neither player can special summon this card from the graveyard. And this effect will activate every turn. It's just a curse that for the rest of the duel will live in your opponent's graveyard, and as beautifully portrayed by the manga, will give your opponent the middle finger every single turn. With that being said, the card does have 2 major weaknesses. It is a level 5, and it has to be killed by battle. However, we might be able to solve both of those problems. Here is the plan. If we play Hell Poemer in a Frog deck, we will have constant tribute fodder in order to get him onto the field. But in this deck, we don't want to tribute summon him, we want to tribute set. Now, we can use the key card of this deck, Creature Swap. If we swap out the Hell Poemer with our opponent's monster, as long as the opponent's monster has more than 1,400 attack, we will be able to attack over the Hell Poemer. Now, for the remainder of the duel, our opponent will be haunted by this less attractive version of Dante.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
A pretty consistent low resource plan? Maybe this card will actually be good. Here is my Edison format deck list.
Oh no!
As you can see, it is a pretty standard Edison format Frog deck list with a twist. I think Hell Poemer works perfectly in this deck, and let me tell you about the card by card. First up, we have the boss monster himself, the Hell Poemer, a card that at first glance doesn't look like it would be that good, but when you see it work in this deck, you will know that this card has some power behind it. Speaking of power, we're also running Caius, the best boss monster. Honestly, I think in some tournaments, it's also the most played card in Edison format. All around great card, and in a deck that uses Treeborn Frog, you gotta run 3 Caius. We're also playing 2 more tribute summons in Ryza and Mobius. Ryza is a great all-around catch to Floodgates, and Mobius is excellent because once Help Homer starts discarding cards out of your opponent's hand, they're going to be setting those power cards. So Mobius is a great way to clean those up and take advantage of your opponent trying to play around your unique strategy. We're also playing some hand traps, Gores, Trag, and 3 Battle Fader. These are great to make the game last a long time because the longer the game lasts, the more cards Help Homer is going to be ripping out of your opponent's hand. We're also on 2 Junk Synchron. This has been one of the most interesting developments of Frog decks in Edison format. Before, Royal Tribute would ruin your strategy, and Junk Synchron is a great way in order to bring back a frog and make a level 5 Synchro or a level 6 if you have your Treeborn Frog also coming back. This list is different than a typical frog list because Help Homer is a dark, so Dad feels even better. Although you don't really want to banish Help Homer because it'll stop activating its effect every turn, we're also on the standard frog engine. We've got the 3 Substitoad, 3 Swap Frog, 2 Dupe Frog, and 2 Treeborn Frog. Brain Control is one of the most powerful cards in Edison format, and it works great in this list because we play so many tribute summons and we can even use it to combo with our Substitoad. Creature Swap is amazing in frog lists to begin with. People love summoning Treeborn Frog in attack position and then giving it to their opponent. Also Battle Fader you can swap, and if you put it in attack position, you can get in some major damage with just Creature Swap alone. But this card works perfectly in the Help Homer version of frogs. Being able to give your opponent Help Homer and make it die by battle offensively is one of the most powerful plays this deck can do. We're also playing 1 for 1, probably the best start in any frog deck. We're on 1 enemy controller, some spell trap removal in Heavy Storm and MST, and one of the most interesting reasons to play this version of frogs is the fact you get to run Allure of Darkness. We're also on 3 upstart in order to find those frogs quickly and find those tributes even faster, and 1 Phoenix Wing and 1 Trap Dust Shoot are our traps. Let's get into the duels. We open up a pretty decent hand: Treeborn Frog, Help Homer, Battle Fader, Brain Control, and Substitoad. Our opponent is playing Dark Gaia, which is a very interesting deck. So our opponent reveals Malicious Fiend and sends a Malicious Edge from their deck to the graveyard. They're going to set 1 back row and pass the turn back to us. On our turn, we are going to activate Brain Control, paying 800 life points to steal their Prisma. Now we can normal summon the Substitoad and activate Priority to send their monster to the graveyard in order to summon out a frog from our deck. We'll get Swap Frog, which will send a Treeborn Frog from our deck to the graveyard. Then we can just do some Substitoad shenanigans, sending every frog in our deck to the graveyard and ending on the dupe block. Our opponent will draw a card, normal summon a Quakimeru, reveal a Grand Mole, and pass their turn. We draw an MST. So in the standby phase, we're going to summon the Treeborn Frog, tribute the Treeborn Frog for Help Homer. Fortunately for us, a very popular version of frogs is Frog Hero. So our opponent might be thinking at this moment, that's a Destiny Hero Malicious. What else would they set? Our opponent goes to the main phase. They are going to summon Caius, and in order to get around this dupe block, they are going to banish one of the dupe frogs and then attack over the second dupe frog. This dupe frog will be sent to the graveyard, and we can add a Swap Frog back to our hand. Our opponent is going to pass the turn back to us. We're going to bring back Treeborn Frog in the standby phase, activate Upstart Goblin, draw a card, and we draw a Ryza. We can tribute summon the Ryza targeting the back row. We can flip up the Help Homer, attack into the Caius with the Help Homer, triggering its effect. Then we will attack into the Caius with this Ryza, killing both of them. Our opponent is going to draw 1 card. They're going to activate Reinforcement of the Army in order to get a Stratos to their hand. They are then going to normal summon that Stratos. They activate its effect to add another Prisma to their hand. They will go to the battle phase, attack for 1800, and oh no, did you forget about Help Homer? Now they have to discard a card from their hand at the end of the battle phase. We discard the Prisma that they just added, very funny. They will set 1 back row and then end the turn. We clear the back row, summon back the Treeborn Frog, tribute summon the Help Homer in our hand, special summon the Swap Frog, go to the battle phase, attack over the Stratos for 200, and then attack our opponent for 1000. We can go to main phase 2, return the Swap Frog back to the hand, set a Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, and pass the turn. Our opponent normal summons a Neospatian Grand Mole, and we're going to activate Phoenix Wing Wind Blast in order to put that Grand Mole back on top of the deck. We wait until they declare an attack, so they are forced to go into the battle phase, which at the end of the battle phase, you all know what's going to happen. Our Help Homer's effect will activate, and they have to discard a random card from their hand. They discard a dead trap dust shoot, lucky for them. They pass the turn back to us, and we draw a creature swap. Now we just go to the battle phase and attack our opponent for 2,000. We pass the turn back to our opponent. They draw the Grand Mole that was on top of their deck. Now they are going to set both of their cards in order to play around the Hellpalmer in the graveyard, normal summon the Grand Mole, attack into our Hellpalmer, returning both to the hand, and oh no. Do you realize it's now the end of the battle phase and you have a card in your hand? The Hellpalmer's effect will activate, discarding the Grand Mole from the hand, which is one of the funniest interactions I have ever seen. Our opponent is very confused. What the F, every phase. They pass the turn back to us. We are going to special summon the Treeborn Frog, tribute summon a Caius the Shadow Monarch, targeting one of their back row. Fortunately, it was a foolish burial. You see, our opponent was trying to play around the Hellpalmer by setting all their power cards, and the Monarchs can just pick them off one by one. We're going to the battle phase, attack our opponent for 2,400 life points, and pass the turn. Our opponent draws the best card in their deck, the Dark Calling. They're able to summon a 4,500 attack Dark Gaia to the field. They attack into our Caius. We take 2,100 life points, and then they pass the turn back to us. During the standby phase, we will summon a Treeborn Frog. We will activate Creature Swap, giving our opponent our Treeborn Frog. Then we will tribute their Dark Gaia in order to summon Mobius and clear the back row. Now we will attack into our Treeborn Frog, dealing some damage, and then pass the turn back to our opponent. Our opponent draws for turn and admits defeat. And now for the moment you have all been dying to see, the Cursed Tech tier list. Oh boy, we might have made a grave mistake with this one. This card is good. Hellpalmer accomplishes something that is absent from all other areas of Edison format, something I like to call hand disadvantage. While Hero Beat decks use positive card advantage and resource loops to have a greater chance of winning the longer the game goes on, Hellpalmer does the exact opposite, using negative card advantage to give your opponent less resources the longer the duel continues. Its random discarding makes your opponent either have to overcommit or risk losing key resources. A game plan that fits perfectly within the Frog strategy. With hand traps like Battle Fader and Gores, your opponent cannot end the game quickly, and they're forced to play in this shadow game for multiple turns. Hellpalmer is the perfect fit within Frog decks because they are desperate for playable tributes anyway. I mean, someone the other day, they got 7th place in a major tournament using Zaborg. They were using Zaborg. And it is for that reason that for the first time in Cursed Tech history, I am putting Hellpalmer in the competitive tier. It is the definition of what a tech card should be. It does something unique that can single-handedly snowball the game in your favor. It plays the game completely differently than the top decks, giving you an advantage over your opponent, who will be both caught off guard and unaware of how to play against your unique interactions. Although it might not be better than Frogs, which is one of the top 3 decks in Edison, it's really not that much worse. And plus, this card traps your opponent in a mental shadow game, haunting their hand and giving them the middle finger every single turn. And that, my friends, is exactly what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all about. See you next time.
Oft chill shaving, shalana threatum, monium, maigdum, mayara setla off there.